This episode has been brought to you in part by the Azrieli Music Prizes. Join them in celebrating artistic excellence at the AMP Gala Concert, live from Maison Symphonique in Montreal, happening October 20th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Orchestre Metropolitain will premiere award-winning music by laureates Aharon Harla, Iman Habibi, and Rita Ueda. Learn more at azrielifoundation.org/AMP.
Hey everybody, we're the Menschwarmers, your bi-weekly look at the world of Jews and sports. I'm here with my co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, how you doing? Welcome to this week's Shtetl Talk.
Yeah, we do actually go through a fair number of shtetls, I would say, in our interview with Eliezer Sherbatov, the first Israeli player in the KHL, Israeli-Canadian hockey player who's got a new book coming out telling his story as a hockey player, as a, Soviet, the child of Soviet refugees to Israel, and really interesting stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit about that book right off the top, Gabe, because one of the more interesting parts of the book that we talk about in the interview with Ellie and the author Anna Rosner is about Ellie's sort of 11th hour escape from Ukraine on the eve of invasion. So that is just, really just like, it couldn't be more recent that this happened. And, Anna mentioned, like, they were basically trying to stop the presses to make that happen. So, he was playing for a team in Mariupol, which I think is like, it's a city that probably nobody in Canada necessarily knew the name of a year ago, but probably now everybody's heard of. And, he had this sort of amazing escape with other players on his team who had foreign citizenship, who were able to get to the border with Poland and get out. And he's not to give away the ending, but he made it out safely back in Canada. He was in Montreal when we were speaking to him, so really glad that he was able to do that. But a really just fascinating book about his life, overcoming a disability in his leg with his his mother, who's a figure skating coach, and his career in hockey and professional hockey and in internationally for Team Israel.
There isn't really a way to undersell or oversell. I think the word I'm looking for is oversell the story of this guy's life and what he's been through. Some quick highlights, his grandparents or his parents are the children of Holocaust survivors. In Russia, left Russia due to anti-Semitism, and Israel left Israel because of the Gulf War going on. And then throughout his adult career has dealt with significant injury, struggling playing hockey in some of the far-flung corners of the world as an outsider, as he puts it. In our interview, you'll see as a Israeli, French, Russian Jew with a leg injury, with a handicap. Right. So, and then he gets stuck in a war zone when he's just trying to play hockey for what amounts to, it seems to be the third or so time in his life. So it's not, there's it's very hard to oversell what this guy's been through. So it's a fascinating conversation, and we're thrilled to have him on the show.
Absolutely. And we should mention as well, we talked about it a little bit, but, he was playing for a hockey team in Oswiecim, which is the town, outside of Auschwitz. He was later playing, I think, in a town in Kazakhstan where his grandfather had lived, sort of going on the tour of Eastern European Jewry in the course of his hockey career. So, a different sort of tour of things, but really just an interesting story, of how sports sort of mirrors life in lots of ways. And we should say off the top, it's a sort of young adult, I think, type story. Anna Rosner, who's a teacher at York University.
I think it's for everyone, young adults of all ages.
Absolutely. But I just mean that I think this is something that, I would hope kids read in class, and, Jews and non-Jews alike. I think it's a great story. Sports fans and non-sports fans, I think it's a great story of, sort of overcoming adversity in many different ways and having a successful career in the thing that you love. So, really definitely recommend it. We were lucky to be able to read advanced copies of it. So get it where you can. My Left Skate is the name of the book, The Extraordinary Story of Eliezer Sherbatov.
And you'll hear in the interview the history of the title, as well as sort of what brought Eliezer to all these far-flung places around the world.
Absolutely. Before we get to the interview, just we'll go over a little bit of sports news in the world of Jews. I mean, coming to the end of the baseball season, we had some news recently about a new member of Team Israel,
Mr. Fish.
That's Jake. Yeah, no, Jake Bird.
Mr. Bird,
not a fish, a bird. Jake Bird.
There was definitely a fish in the MLB earlier this summer.
You mean Nate Fish?
I mean Nate Fish, good friend of the pod. But yeah, Jake Bird. Maybe I'm thinking of Jake Bird.
Yeah. So Jake Bird, who's a pitcher for the Colorado Rockies.
Tim Salmon was not Jewish.
He made his debut earlier this year with the Rockies. I think he's been sort of up and down since then, but he's gotten into 30 games with the Rockies. So putting together a pretty solid career as a reliever now. And I had no idea he was Jewish. I mean, his name's Jacob. That helps.
Jacob helps.
I don't know if anyone else had to. I'd never seen it on any of the lists, but he has announced that he's going to be playing for Team Israel. So ostensibly has the basis from which to become an Israeli citizen, which usually means a Jewish parent at the minimum. And, he's committed to the team. It's shaping out pretty well. I mean, obviously we'll talk about this a lot more in advance of the World Baseball Classic, but it is going to be a top 5 or 6 team at the tournament.
I'm thinking of Jake Fishman.
Oh, you're thinking of Jake Fishman. Okay,
we've got the Fishman.
Right. So Fishman.
We've got Jake Fishman and now Jake Bird, man.
Right, absolutely. So that you're right. So Jake Fishman, previously in the Blue Jays organization, I think got traded to the Marlins, and he has been making his way onto the Marlins roster and
got an ERA just around 2. Yeah, he's pitched in 2 games and he's given up 1 run in 4 innings. So he's executing, but has not played very, very much.
Right. So Fishman played for Israel back in the 2020 Olympics. I don't know if he's announced whether he'll be playing for Israel at the WBC, but seems likely. And all that he would continue to play for Israel.
Absolutely.
Play for Israel at the WBC.
According to the Jewish Baseball News, he has not yet committed. But I would imagine, most of the guys, you look at Scott Efros on the Yankees, who's having a great season in high leverage relief, as well as Dean Kramer, who's really emerging into the ace of the Baltimore Orioles, who are a competitive team now. There's a lot of guys that haven't yet. Dean Kramer did commit, I should say. He has committed yet. But, if they can get Max Fried on and Efros, that's a pretty good rotation and bullpen coming up.
Yeah, and Peterson and Harrison Bader in the outfield is going to be pretty good in terms of hitting.
Jock too. Don't forget Jock Jock Peterson.
Yeah, that's what I said. And Richard Blyer as well as a potentially one of the other starters. You don't necessarily need the deepest team, but you need some stars at the top. So
I've said this before. I saw Garrett Stubbs play a game. And my God, does he have magnificent hair? Just spectacular, beautiful, nice tight curls. He's a good player. He's got sort of a pretty high average this season. Had about 100 at bats and is hitting 300. So would be a great recruit to play catcher. Although obviously longtime Team Israel stalwart Ryan Lavarnway has got that job to begin with. But
that's true.
If Stubby can take it over, I think the team would be just as good.
Yeah, so I would say, when the MLB season winds down, like next spring, late winter is probably when we're going to start hearing more announcements. But really excited to welcome Jake Bird to the team as a fan of Team Israel, as I think most of our listeners probably are. And moving on from Jake Bird, we have some other Bird news, which is that Sue Bird has played her last game as a WNBA professional. Yeah, so the Seattle Storm.
She had quite the farewell. It was, I don't know if you watched the games, but the last two games of the career were really tight back and forth affairs for a spot in the WNBA final. and
Yeah.
very, very close games. One of them went to double overtime, and Las Vegas, just so slightly edged them out with the MVP of the league, Aja Wilson. So it was
Yeah.
a very, very
So
tough way to lose, but going out on a high note for performance, if not result.
Yeah, and unfortunately, she won't be able to add a fifth
ring.
championship, a fifth ring to her trophy case. But one last time, I just want to go over this again because this is extraordinary. How dominant she was, how dominant she's been since her college playing days. 2-time NCAA champion, 3-time Nancy Lieberman Award winner, 4-time WNBA champion, 5-time Olympic gold medalist. That's a 16-year span of Olympic gold medals,
winning every time.
13-time All-Star, 5-time All-First Team. She is the all-time assist leader in the WNBA. She has a legacy that will not be matched for a long time. I think Jews should know her name and be proud of her and proud of her career. I don't think this is the end. I don't think she's going to be off like Karl Malone hunting and fishing every day for the rest of her career. I think she is someone who is going to be around. Obviously, talented person and captivating personality. And this is not the last we've seen of Sue Bird, but it is the end of her playing days, and I think it's a little sad, but that's it happens to all of us. Eventually, someone tells us we can't play the game anymore, right?
It's of course it's interesting. Although it's amazing, she's still going out at relatively sort of a high level. I mean, the team was. She's going out, because it's tough for her. She's not young. She's got to keep up with everybody, but she also can, she's calling her own number. She could have kept playing and she decided, you know what, I'm done.
Right.
Nobody, she's got, even said, and that's with no other basketball player of any gender has won 5 gold medals except for one of her teammates, Diana Taurasi. But, nobody, none of the men have ever won 5 medalists. And interestingly enough, I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But, depending on how it works, because it's, the Basketball Hall of Fame, she'll be in both the College Basketball Hall of Fame and the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame, which is a pretty rare thing to happen. She is basically the greatest shooter in college and WNBA history, as well as, a former college player of the year, national college player of the year, and 3-time point guard of the year.
Yeah, exactly. So, best wishes to her. I think we'll keep an eye on what she's doing next, and obviously keep our listeners appraised of what's going on there. Gabe, anything else you want to mention in terms of recent news that we should keep an eye on, or things to watch in the coming days?
To watch this week is Max Homa, our favorite Jewish golfer. He is defending his Fortinet championship. He was recently named to the President's Cup team, which is Team America against the best players from non-European countries in the world. I think he is the only Jew in the tournament and probably the first to make the team in many years. One thing that's also interesting, he is sponsored, because he won the tournament, by Fortinet, the cybersecurity software and hardware company, who also sponsors David Lipsky, another Jewish guy on the PGA Tour. So it's a Chinese-owned hardware company that operates in America, and its spokespeople are 2 Jewish professional golfers. So I hope Lipsky performs well in the tournament this week. He just recently re-earned his PGA Tour card on the Korn Ferry Tours for full-time status. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets off to a good start this season.
Yeah, interesting things to follow. I mean, golf's one of those sports that it seems like it's always in season, and it's sort of funny. I mean, the FedEx Cup ended 2 weeks ago, and I mean, the Fortinet's the first thing. As the fall tour is sort of like it's
a short off season.
It's a short off season. The fall tour is sort of the build up to the things that go on in the spring and the summer. But I mean, there's still $8 million at stake at the Fortinet, and it's still a real tournament. And we'll start to see over the next few months. Certainly as we get to like the Zozos Championship, people seem to be playing a lot more these days. And I don't know what's the first. I guess the Sony Open and the Phoenix are the first ones in the new year that are big. Pebble Beach too,
notable as well. Yes,
things up.
I think so.
Exciting that that Homa's playing to defend his title in Fortinet at Silverado, and I hope he wins again. I mean, I think he's certainly got as much of a shot as anyone. He's ranked 22nd in the world now. He's like probably among the odds-on favorites to win the Fortinet championship.
Absolutely.
Should we do more gambling talk on our podcast? I think that's something we need to talk about. I know we've talked about like we've talked about behind the scenes as an idea. Having a rabbi on to discuss.
We should let the note to our producer Mike, and if you're listening, Rabbi Feingold, host of Bonjour High, will you come and discuss the ethics?
The ethics of sports gambling is something that we're going to need to talk about from a Jewish perspective. Absolutely. But it feels I know there's been a common complaint, especially among non-gambling sports watchers, that like sports betting commercials and talk has like taken over their beloved and previously uncorrupted pure sports. But like maybe we need to include more. So yeah, Homa is the solo favorite at 10-1. So that is great. Good for him to be going into a tournament with the best odds. Put your money down, guys. Maybe we'll need to start introducing a Jewish sports pick of the week. Do some legal, that would be
interesting if there's a Jewish guy worth your bet on any given time. That would be.
We'll need to wait for some sponsorship from Draft Melechs. If and when that comes, then we'll have to start doing some sports.
What's the gematria for Bet365?
Good question.
Yeah, is it? I don't know it well enough in our head, but it would be like a double high and 5 for.
Well, people, the Jewish people have always been a people of gambling. Even our places of worship. We got Bet Tzedek, Bet Sholem. These are all great places to put down some bets.
It's interesting, when just sort of there's a Jews.
That was a joke for clear purposes. That was a joke. Bet Tzedek, please don't take away the free membership that you just gave me.
Yeah, we can talk about this off the air. But good for you. Is that part of the package of getting married there, or are they just hard up for people?
No, they're free memberships for everyone under 40 now.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I got to look into this.
I know. This is like the classic, the joke about the Jewish dilemma being free pork. And for me, it's like free membership to a synagogue that I don't necessarily ascribe to all the values of, but it's free. I mean, come on, what am I going to do? Pay for high holiday tickets that I'm not going to use?
We're going to get back to sports in a minute, but I have a relevant story. And that's, you can pull a Larry David and scalp them. You get them free, right, and then you can scalp them, outside the arena, or outside the chapel. But, that reminds me, this line of discussion reminds me of my bar mitzvah portion, which I didn't understand what it was when I was 13 years old. I just sort of like, said it and read it and then assumed, it was this. But,
right,
it's a lot of people have these really holy bar mitzvah portions that sort of discuss this and that, part of morality or the sacrifice of your son in honor of God and so on and so forth. But my actual portion, and this is in the holy book, is like a long and protracted negotiation between Abraham and a local community on pre-buying his gravesite for him and his wife.
Wow.
It is just a long, like, oh no, I think we should pay 25 shekels. And then the other people think we should pay 40 shekels. And it just goes back and forth. And that's the bar mitzvah portion. So even our holy texts, you bring a pimply-faced 13-year-old up to, learn and read about the power of negotiation when discussing a burial plot.
That's true. That's, maybe the nature, maybe that's the basis for everything that we've done, even the basis for the podcast format in the first place. Just two Jews negotiating over their local sports.
Who gets to speak
more? This is why we don't talk about religion on here much. I mean, we're going to get ourselves excommunicated from any respectable synagogues in the Greater Toronto area. So before we dig our own grave sites, why don't we get to our interview? Why don't we get to our interview with Anna Rosner and Eliezer Sherbatov? All right, we're very delighted to be joined tonight by two guests, Eliezer Sherbatov and Anna Rosner, who have worked together on a new book My Left Skate, The Extraordinary Story of Eliezer Sherbatov. How are you both doing? Nice to see both of you.
Good.
Thank you. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Anna, why don't you start off? Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what your background is?
Sure. I'm a writer, mostly a teacher, and my first book was called Journeyman. Was about Jamie Leach, who is the son of the famous hockey player Reggie Leach. And that was for kids age 9 to 12. And then one day I stumbled on Eliezer's story in the Globe and Mail. And I hadn't intended to write another hockey biography, but I realized that I had to tell his story because it was just so amazing. So
that's great. And Ellie, tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and why are you the subject of a book? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, it's not. My name is Eliezer Sherbatov. It's a funny story. I've been playing hockey since I'm 7 years old. It's a wish from my dad from Israel. He always wanted me to play hockey. So I ended up going to Europe as a professional, and a couple of years ago, I ended up in Auschwitz, in the city where the Auschwitz camp, and Anna wrote me, and she wanted to write a book about me, which I was I was a bit in shock in the beginning, but then she told me what I've been through, and then I said, "Hey, maybe maybe I should write a book."
So that's a great lead-in. So, Eliezer, why don't we start a bit about what you've been through? You are born in Israel but raised in Canada?
Yes, born in Israel, raised in Canada as a Russian.
Okay, so we've got three different countries.
Yeah.
And I think the anecdote that's going to get a lot of press or has already gotten press is pretty great of your dad speaking to the immigration officer in Israel about why he wanted to move to Montreal and saying that it's the province of Guy Lafleur, and of course that's where he wants to go so that his kids can play hockey just like Guy Lafleur. Pretty amazing place to start. It's interesting to see in the book that your dad was a big hockey fan back in the Soviet Union, and that was something that sort of kept him going when all things were difficult back then.
Yes, was that I need to answer this?
It was a jumping off point, but that's okay. I thought that was
I thought you were talking. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I thought you were just saying about the book and everything. Yes, absolutely. It's for me. Knowing this as a child, I didn't really comprehend. But now, as an adult, you start to realize that what my parents have been through, their thoughts, their feelings. When I was this age, so I can compare right now as an adult. So it's kind of sometimes surreal, the thoughts, the things that they said they went through. It's kind of surreal, but it's fun because that book, at the end of the day, it's not my story. I think it's more of their story, my parents, my grandparents, what they've been through. So but right. Honestly, you should be asking all the questions to Anna because she probably knows me more than me.
She looks like she wants to jump in.
Yes,
we should say the book is a bit of a as told to type biography, and Anna, you're the one responsible for actually putting those words down on paper, and I think investigating some of the things that the book goes into and some of the history of Ellie and his family and his journey. So what drew you to Ellie's story and developing this into a book?
Well, firstly, his parents' story is remarkable. So he had a great origin story, like a good Marvel hero in some ways. His parents fled Russia in part because of anti-Semitism, also because of the mafia that was threatening his father's life. And what was tragic about it was that they went to Israel and did find home, I think, in some ways, but were faced with the Gulf War. So there were Scud missiles, falling on them and their children for that long month. And so they just needed to find peace and finally found that in Montreal. And I think that in some ways their sports, their love of sports and athleticism, because their three children are incredible athletes, is what helped them sort of land on their feet and be so centered. And so...
So this is sort of a question I have for either of you. We can start with Eliezer and then go to Anna, but as a man of three countries, you're as you said, a Russian Jew who's also Israeli but plays for Canada. Sort of what role for you does hockey play in your immigration story? We have the story of the Guy Lafleur anecdote, but as a hockey player, how important is hockey to you and your family?
I think hockey it's probably the only time where I can be myself and feel free as myself. It doesn't matter. To be honest, my whole career, I how can I say it? I was never part. And let's say I'm in Russia, they considered me as a Jew. I play in Europe, they considered me as a Canadian. I play in Canada, they considered me as a Russian. I'm never. I don't know how to say it in English. I was never.
Belong?
Yeah, belong. I never belong, but at the end of the day I didn't care because for me I belonged on the ice, and it doesn't matter which country, it doesn't matter from where I'm from, my parents. It's just, I think at the end of the day hockey regroups everybody, it brings everybody together, and me it really regrouped me, the
So
ice.
that's great to hear. And you've played all over the world, and you're from all over all these different places. You mentioned you were looking for an English word. What is your first language?
To be honest, it might be Hebrew, might be Hebrew, but what my parents told me is that I knew Hebrew as a kid, but I forgot it. So it might be Hebrew, my first language, but really, technically, it's Russian.
Right.
Okay. And playing in Europe, is speaking Russian important, or is English more important?
I would say, if you're in the Russian speaking languages, yeah, Russian. But like let's say I played in Slovakia, Russian was more important. I picked up Slovakian in 2 seconds. I was speaking Slovakian in a couple of months. I had conversations. So depending on the country, yes, more like let's say Poland. Let's say, my God, I don't even remember. There's so many countries. Any
Kazakhstan.
other country, English, but in France, French. I'm lucky. I know French, English, and Russian.
Right.
So
And we should say that when you played for Bratislava, that you became the first Israeli player in the KHL.
yes,
I think the only one so far, as far as we know.
I think they might. There's another one. His name is
Okay, great.
Bean. Yeah,
Sorry,
but
what is his name?
let's keep it at that. The first one, forget
the first one. That's the most important.
that was honestly for me the one of the most important parts of my life. It's to become the first Israeli in the KHL, because that was the goal. That was the dream.
Right. And then what was it like, as you mentioned, playing in the town just outside of Auschwitz, where, obviously there had been the scene of the most horrific atrocities of the Holocaust. What was it like being there as a Jew, playing hockey, so close to where that had happened?
To be honest, I'm gonna let Anna answer this question, because I always have difficulty to express this, and when I wrote the book, how Anna had explained, like how she explained everything what I've been through. She really said into words what I was feeling. So honestly, especially I'm not that good at English. I'm gonna let Anna answer, if Anna she's okay with this.
Absolutely.
I can try, but if it's said well in the book, and yes, well, it's because you told me it well. But I mean, I think he was completely overwhelmed. He was supposed to visit Auschwitz with an Israeli camera crew, and the pandemic actually interrupted that. But I think, he had the opportunity to go before, he had the opportunity to go after the season ended. And he couldn't bring himself to do it. And it was something that I really understood because of my own history. And it's just, I think in the book, we both talked about how do you face something that you can never truly understand? And how do you live afterwards once you've faced it? So he had to get used to living with something that was so normal. His life was normal, but at the same time, he was just a few kilometers and could actually see the barracks of Auschwitz from his apartment. So you're trying to live a normal life, but I think it's almost impossible to ever really just go to the grocery store like a normal person and not think about, the million Jews who perished there. So a really tough, voyage mentally, I think. Ellie, j'ai bien dit?
Yeah, she's Anna. She said it perfectly. Mentally, wasn't it? I wasn't there yet, or I would. I don't think I would ever be, because I was living right on the river of the. I died. Yes, that river, every morning you wake up and you see that river where they were. I don't want to get into details, but
Sure.
I had one amazing game. It was the first game where the fan was, and I would say, okay, I might have a great season, despite, like, not despite, but even everything around this, there's gonna be greatness. And but after the pandemic, no fans after this, and it become darker and darker,
Right.
and the critics and the media and everything, the camp, it was overwhelming mentally.
And then I think we see something about how history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but what's the expression? It does tend to rhyme. In that, the last chapter of the book talks about this sort of ordeal that you went through trying to get out of Ukraine as the Russians were invading, and that's very dramatic and sort of echoing what had previous generations have sort of gone through, obviously in a different way, but that was very interesting as well. And was that part of the story when you started this project and writing this book, or was that an unexpected twist?
Just where the story goes.
Yeah.
We almost stopped the presses to get that
Right.
chapter in there, because we were, it was almost, about to go to print. We were editing the last little bits of it. And then I woke up, that morning in February 24th, almost had a heart attack when I realized that the war had begun and Eliezer was still there, because we were still in contact at that point, and I had to live those 48 hours with him, which were, I had about 1 hour sleep while he was on that train for 24 hours trying to get out. But it was something that we added in the end. I literally wrote to my editor and said, I've got to add this story, because as soon as I knew it was okay. And so we added the extra chapter, and I think it adds a lot to the book.
And we should have said this off the top, but you're now safely home or back in Montreal, for the time being, at least. Obviously, you got out of Ukraine without too much difficulty. What's next for you in terms of your hockey career?
But I would say something. No, having the chapter, all the buzz, the book is gonna be. I think is gonna be a nice hit. Not because of the Ukrainian chapter, but it really adds up to the book. But
That's
I
great.
would exchange not going through this and not having a book than
Right.
going through this and having a book. So
Of course.
I just want to mention it. It's not something that I'm happy that I have this. I'd rather not have it,
Of course.
and not live through this, because the aftermath of this, it's a whole nother level. That's another book. Now the aftermath, I'm going day by day, but I've decided not to leave Quebec. Stay close to my family. I'll be playing hockey in the LNAH for the team Jonquière this season. It's a good league. I still get to play. I still get to be a professional hockey, and at the same time, I get to continue and build a new the upcoming hockey players. What my mom, my brothers have been doing since always. It's to teach and develop upcoming athletes. So that's what I'm gonna be doing full time.
That sounds great. Do you, this question is again for Eliezer or Anna, but you mentioned earlier you're sort of always an outsider when you play, but hockey is where you be yourself. You're either Russian in Canada, or you're Canadian, or you're a Jew. How does playing in Canada compare to the rest of the world in that sense? And, as the second part of it, do you feel that, the sort of otherness is getting better or worse for you as your career goes on the ice?
Um, To be honest, it doesn't get any better. At the end of the day, if I score goals, everybody likes you. It doesn't matter. The other team hates you, but your teammates and the management loves you, whether you're
Absolutely.
Right.
any
And
type.
Eliezer, you had the opportunity to play for Team Israel on a number of occasions. What was that like? What were those teams like? Was it mostly Canadians with Israeli citizenship? Was it
No, no,
other
no, no.
Soviet Israelis?
It's now it's mostly Israelis. It depends on which management is the the Israeli Federation is. So the beginning when I was playing more Russian than Canadian, now it's more Israelis.
Right.
Israel hockey is getting better right now, so there's more Israelis.
I mean, you guys were, and are you still the captain of the team? Is that, I know there hasn't been some competition since the pandemic, but you were captaining the team beforehand.
Yeah, I was captain in Mexico when we won the gold medal, 2019.
19, yeah. So that's, I guess, up until this year was the most recent one. So you won the gold medal from Division 2. What's next for Team Israel? Are you still playing?
We will see. We will see. For next year, I need to talk to the management. They're having their own issues right now, so I'll be talking with them for next season.
Well, I think it's certainly something that Jews all over the world are happy to support, especially Jews in Canada who are more hockey centric and always cheering on hockey players around the world and happy to watch Israel compete at these high levels internationally. It's really amazing to see for a country with not exactly a long history of hockey playing or amenability to playing hockey, to really be developing a good hockey program and developing a lot of great a lot of young players now.
Do you feel a responsibility because of that to sort of lead Israeli hockey into the future?
Yes, I had this. I think I had this responsibility, and I have been doing it since I'm 13. And I think that the only thing everybody knows Israel hockey. There's the name Sherbatov beside it, no matter what. Whether it's the highlight goal, whether it's the first Israeli in the KHL, whether is playing as a Israeli Jew in QMJHL in Montreal Juniors. I was always an advocate for Israel, even when I was playing in Canada. So everybody knows. So that's what I think it is. I'm saying facts. So um, at the end of the day, I've been doing it since I'm a kid. So I'm just gonna keep it. I don't know how much more I can do.
No, it's a great answer.
Obviously, I want to do more, but I just cannot take a backpack and build a rink and then.
Oh, come on, why not? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, it's just I'm here. If they want more of me, the federation, they know.
I have one more question for you. And I would love it if we haven't got to it yet, but could you guys, Eliezer, Anna, whichever one, could you take us through why the title of the book? What is My Left Skate about?
You want me to answer that, Eliezer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you don't know, or you?
No, we do know. We just want the audience to know.
No. Have you read the book?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you didn't know. That's why you're asking.
It's for the benefit of the audience.
Okay.
It's a bit of a long story, but he had a terrible rollerblading accident at age 14. And as a result, he was out of hockey for 2.5 years and he had 3 operations and never regained any feeling in his left leg below the knee. So everything that he's accomplished in hockey, he's done, with this disability because he has to walk with a brace. But he doesn't skate with a brace because the skate acts as the brace.
Because it holds it, yeah.
Exactly. And I think, when you were talking earlier about him, about him not really belonging or not really being sure where he belonged. I think in part something that made him especially free on the rink was that disability completely disappeared when he had to skate. He didn't need the brace, but as soon as he comes off the ice, it goes back on. So in a way, it was liberating for him to be on the ice and to be a hockey player. Eliezer, what do you think?
So yeah, Anna said everything right. Which the disability is called drop foot, which I have no sensation or muscle that picks up my foot. It's just slim. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't belong. Is just now that I'm a Jew, Israeli, Russian, French, whatever, and a handicap at the same time. They look at me. "Oh, what is this guy doing?"
But as you said, if you score goals.
Yeah, but and plus I'm small. I was the smallest. I was like, who's this guy?
I want to ask about one more thing our audience can't see. But we're looking at Eliezer on camera. You have some pretty spectacular hockey lettuce on your some hair. If we can see, can you take down your ponytail?
Yeah.
Can you show us the full hair?
Yeah.
That's majestic. Wow. And
unfortunately, this isn't a visual medium, but we'll make sure we get a picture up on the website with the full head of hair.
So
if we can.
So here's a cultural question. Do you feel your long hair? I've played a lot of hockey in my life. I've watched a lot of hockey. I've also been to Israel several times, and I know a lot of Israeli people. Do you find your long hair is more of a hockey thing or an Israel thing?
No, man. I think it's more of a me thing. I think it's more of a Tarzan thing. Watch Tarzan with the long hair, with the swinging. And I said, man, I want to be just like him. having Jane on one hand, swinging the other. That's how I met my wife. She looked at me. I was like, because I can't walk, so I'm always like a monkey at school. That's how I met her. She saw me, fell in love right away.
Swinging from a vine.
Yeah, I grabbed her and said, "Let's leave."
That's great. Before we go, Anna, is there anything else you want to mention? Anything about the book? I think it's coming out just a few weeks after we're taping this.
Yeah, it'll be out in October, available everywhere, and we're having a book launch in Montreal on October 13th if you want to come.
Where is it in Montreal? We'll add that to the show notes.
It's at Complexe Guimont in Laval.
Okay, great.
The restaurant in the Complexe Guimont on the 440.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be big lunch.
Well, we wish you both lots of luck with the book and with everything else. Ali, I'm sure Jewish sports fans around the world, in Canada and elsewhere, will be continuing to follow your career. And we're excited to see what you do next. And best of luck with everything, and really good luck with the book. I think it's a great read. For young adults, for Jewish kids, for kids who are into hockey. It's a great read.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks again to Anna and Ellie for joining us. That was really great to have them on and hear some more about Ellie's story and about the writing of the book. I think, I really do recommend it. Kids of all ages, adults as well. Definitely one to check out. And,
it's an amazing story. There's, as I said before the interview, it's impossible to overstate what he's been through. I just wish we had more time to ask him about, what the food was like in Kazakhstan.
Right. And while we were on our little break, I think our producer Michael confirmed with Bonjour Chai host and Rabbi extraordinaire Avi Feingold that he will come on the pod to discuss the ethics of sports gambling for Jews. I mean, Gabe, I've got a baby due in about a week, so I might have to take a pod off. So if you don't hear me on the next one, that might be why. Maybe you'll hear something from Avi about the ethics of sports game. I mean, I think. Gambling on sports is one thing. Gambling on how long the shofar blower can hold a tekiah.
Oh, that's real. That's where the real action's at.
That's a real degeneracy. So catch us in the coat room if anyone wants to lay some action.
Absolutely,
lay some action on how long a Haftorah is going to go. Right?
Yeah. Or at which line of the trope is the bar mitzvah boy's voice going to crack? Is it going to be the first amen, or is it going to be by the time of the second aliyah? Which aliyah has the first voice crack or mistake?
We'll get those odds up on Draft Melech as soon as we can.
It's going
anyways,
with our NFTs.
Exactly. Until next time, I'm Jamie. This is Gabe. You can always find our work on the Canadian Jewish News website, cjn.ca. We're produced by Michael Freeman, as always. Thanks to Michael for putting up with us. And you can always follow us on Twitter at Menschwarmers. We do our best to sort of keep things up to date with all the news about Jews and sports. So lots of good interaction there. And follow us, like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it. And we'll see you soon. We'll see you again soon. Happy holidays.
Oh yeah, Shana Tova, everybody.
Happy holidays. What am I?
Yeah,
boy?
what are you?
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Umecha.
Yeah, let's throw it in there, man.
Chag Sameach. If you're listening to this, if you're at a break fast, if you're at a Rosh Hashanah dinner, please recommend this podcast to your nephews. That's what they want. That they only want to talk to you about sports. That's all you might have.
And who's Jewish? That should be the way we pitch our podcast. Just surprise your nephews by telling them Rowdy Telez is Jewish. I
agree. I think surprise your nephews. Surprise your nephews at the breakfast by telling them AJ Dillon is Jewish. That'll get you cool uncle points. And so we hope you learn something from this podcast.
Tell them the Menschwarmers
at all your holiday celebrations. That's right. All right. Again, before we get ourselves in too much trouble, thanks for listening. Shana Tova.